Hi, my name is Ankush, and I wanted to do my presentation on immersive technologies and their effects. So my research question was, what do increasingly immersive sensory experiences mean for the global awareness of events and culture by the individual? Let's break this down. So by immersive sensory experiences, this can be anything from smartphones to virtual reality. Effectively, just something that is able to enhance the human sensory experience to communicate events and ideas to other people more effectively. That counts as a sensory experience. So what I'm asking is effectively, what do these technologies have, what effect do these technologies have on the perception of people around the world? What is the global significance and relevance of this topic? So new possibilities for global interaction, which are made possible by sensory experiences, will allow for greater immersion that allows for understanding of culture, events, and historical and history and environment of the other individuals. And this creates global empathy and sympathy, which can reduce conflict and unite people. How does this connect to the stimulus sources? So a primary theme that was noted in the stimulus sources was the idea of a new perspective. All throughout the articles, at least at one point, it was mentioned to try to look at something from a different angle. And particularly if you look at the Muslim woman in the extrasensory article, the Muslim woman article talked about the importance of understanding cultural viewpoints, while the extrasensory article talked about how technologies enable new viewpoints. I wanted to see if these new technologies that were enabling viewpoints could solve the problem in the context of global understanding. Could these new technologies solve the problems addressed in the Muslim woman article by decreasing, by creating greater understanding of global events and culture? First of all, the problem. The problem is that there's a lack of global understanding. Events and cultures around the world are repressed and misrepresented. How can we solve this? One example of this misrepresentation is the misrepresentation of the Syrian crisis. So the Manchester media reports that deception and propaganda were used to change the way people perceived the Syrian conflict. So the UN inflated death tolls and the media showcased uninhabitable conditions, which painted a picture of a lost cause, something that couldn't be recovered. But of course, this wasn't the case. The cause of action that was taken based on this perception was to mobilize, was to have a bunch of refugees move in and out and go out from their country. But the ideal action would have been actually to create stability within the state. This was entirely possible, but this wasn't explored because the perception of this by the West was not, it just didn't seem possible to do. Many refugees would prefer to actually stay in their state and have it fixed, but they couldn't do that because this wasn't an option that was open to them. With shared viewpoints, this wouldn't have been a problem. People would have understood what the refugees wanted and what the best course of action to take would have been, but this could not have been done. How is technology actually enabling new immersion? So, social media is one of the best forms of immersive technologies. The Huffington Post reports on the Tehran protests, which took place in Egypt. In 2009, as thousands gathered in Tehran to protest the presidential election, something in our worldview changed. People effectively, US teams were able to look at the perceptions of Iranian students and Iranian college students and understand their viewpoint in a way that wasn't portrayed by existing media. For the first time, people were able to connect with others in a way that was unfiltered, it was unmanaged, and it was in its purest form, and it was not edited. The social media immersed US teens in the lives of people across the globe. Only through immersion can people can people see the world from new perspectives, can people have unaltered views on public events, and can people understand deeper complexities and nuances of global issues. So for example, the Muslim woman article, the interviewee talked often about how, the interviewee talked often about how because Muslim women were not particularly well represented within the Western culture, they were seen as servile or almost just like not treated well within Western society. But this wasn't the case. If people had the opportunity to see the world from the perspective of the Muslim women, they would understand that this is not how they actually feel. There are some drawbacks, of course, of immersive technology. So one of the biggest drawbacks is that although immersive platforms are better at better than traditional ways of understanding the world, they can still be taken advantage of. They're still not bulletproof. So for example, there's fake news. It was very easy for people to take advantage of social media because it's unregulated and because it's not managed. So people were able to post information that seemed legitimate, but of course it wasn't correct. The Russian bots and spamming and the Facebook advertising algorithms also decreased the level of immersion that's possible within these societies. One of the best examples that happened very recently is that they're easily able to be taken advantage of by big corporations. Mark Zuckerberg recently attempted to showcase his technology to promote his brand, which is Facebook Live Video, by going to Puerto Rico and showing how well his technology could immerse somebody in the environment. But of course, this seemed very whimsical and unfriendly, and The Verge reported that this was definitely not an ideal way to discuss a devastating hurricane. And this just shows to go how far companies will go to promote their brand at the risk of whimsically laughing at what seems to be a very important global issue. The solution. The best way to approach immersive technology is to immersive spaces must remain unregulated. So even though they can still be taken advantage of, it's important that they remain unregulated and uncontrolled by private industries, or else they will become just like privatized media, which has an inherent bias and is not immersive. Users must also remain skeptical of the content, so they can understand that it's possible for the content to be altered and misrepresented. And corporations, like what Mark Zuckerberg did, must face repercussions of their actions so they're not committed in the future. More immersive technologies must go mainstream so that people can understand the value of immersive technologies and also enhance their benefits. Thank you.
All right. Well, let me ask you a couple of questions. So, explain your level of certainty about your conclusion. That's all that. Yeah.
Well, my conclusion, I think it represents a fairly general case. I don't think I'm arguing for something particularly specific. I'm fairly confident that what we need to do and take action on the situation is accurate because it's because it's already been proven with current research and what current people are doing. We can observe what social media, what the effect of social media is and the repercussions, and say with a fair level of certainty what we need to do to address these issues.
Okay. So how did you select strategies that you used to gather information to conduct your research, and was it effective?
The strategy that I used to collect my information was I wanted to get some recent sources, so I made sure that I looked at some reputable information. I also wanted to get like the perspectives of important figures. So for example, Mark Zuckerberg, which was a very relatable person, or a very important figurehead in determining what people think. I used that as a source to make my argument more convincing and to show the widespread case of this.